I'm Avery. This is episode 2 of Dummy Thwacc, which is a training video for medieval combat. I'm attempting to build a series here at some other people's encouragement that just sort of covers how you might train alone against a dummy. In this case, I've got there's 2 dummies, aren't there? But the idea is, if you wish, you can follow along and join the program at home, or you can simply look at some of the techniques that I'm attempting to use. One of the caveats that I'll add is, because this is a personal journey, I'm working on something that I feel I really ought to improve. So if you want to see my thoughts on setting training goals for Pell work or dummy practice, you can check out the previous video. Otherwise, right up front, just like to encourage you, feel free to leave any questions, comments, or especially if you've got feedback on my form or training techniques, please leave comments in line, because I'm working on this and I'm just bringing you along with me. So feel free to join in and follow along if you wish. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. What I'll try to do is one training thought for each video, as well as one discussion more broadly about training. So with that in mind, here's my training thought. What I've been working on lately is what's called an offside shot. So that is when you strike the opposite side of your opponent as whichever hand your one-handed weapon is in, or if you're using a two-handed weapon, your lead hand or front hand. So an offside, onside, right? So I'm working on my offside shots. There are offside shots to the head, offside shots to the body, offside shots to the leg, and all sorts of variations of all of those. I am starting with offside shots to the head, and at this point I'm about maybe 3,000-4,000 of them in. So what I'm going to be working on is, and I'm still working on the terminology for this internally in my own head, but it appears to me that there are 2 ways to drive power through your hips for an offside shot. One of them is maybe a little bit more conventional, and that's to rotate your body with the rotation of the offside shot. So like this. Right? That is to pull, in a sense, pull this hip back and drive this hip forward. Today I'm going to work on the opposite of that. That's a counter rotation of the hips to the direction of the blow. So if you're right-handed and looking at it from above, the offside shot is clockwise, but the hips turn anti-clockwise, right? So that looks something like this. However, you'll notice this hip motion looks pretty familiar if you've trained onside shots, and there are a zillion videos about how to train onside shots for Pell work. That's part of the reason I'm doing offsides. That hip motion is actually pretty similar here, where you drive, plant from the leg, drive my weight forward, rotate the hips, rotate the knees with it, maybe sink a little bit, and that's that onside shot. So what I'm trying to do is use the same mechanics. Hopefully from the waist down, this looks like much the same shot, and what I'm doing is changing the placement of the weapon. So there's a few different ways to do that. I'm almost done with the talk piece, and then I'll do my Pell work. That's a good time to tune out, honestly, because I'll just be doing running commentary on my own thoughts as I do Pell work. But if you're interested, that might also be a way to see if your psychology is like mine. So hopefully from the hips down, this and this look the same. And ideally, maybe even for your opponent, this much of the shot looks the same. Part of the advantage of throwing the hip forward for the onside and for the offside is if you can get your telegraph down, you can get to about here before deciding, is it going to go there or is it going to go there? And it's really just the hand guiding. I would argue there's a little bit of, it's not just a rotation of the forearm. I would say that your hand actually travels through space a little bit, onside, offside, so there's this much movement, but there's not that much of a tell. So this is a snap and a rotational blow. And I'm trying to train it such that, these are the other things that go through my head when Pell training. Should my hip end the movement at the same time as it strikes the opponent? Like, well, see, I didn't do that. Should my hip end at the same time? Instinctively, it's just not the way I want to fight. Like that. Or should the hip lead and then drive the shoulder, and then the hand comes out sort of in a whip for an onside, right? So if I do the same for an offside, the hand travels last. So the hip, shoulder, arm, right? So do I do it as a whip, or do I try to bang as almost like a straight punch, right? So that's a big question for me. I'm trying to train both. I throw my onsides after a lot of years as more of a whip than a punch where it all delivers at the same time. If you've got opinions, I'd love to hear them. The main things with offsides are like any blow, not having too much tell, it arriving quickly, and it arriving hard. So I feel it's probably a trade-off between those three things. So what I'm trying to do again, forward rotation with the right hip. I'm actually rotating a little bit around the spine, a little bit over the back leg sometimes, a little bit over the front leg sometimes, and trying to, like that onside shot, try to deliver offside head, right? And you can change the targeting on these as you do your Pell work. And I'm constantly going up and down my body trying to think of different things, right? So now I'm thinking this might be the place where you tune out because I'm starting to do my Pell work. I'm thinking about rolling my pelvis forward a little bit. That engages the spine a little bit more. I tend to fight a little bit too often with my butt out, according to some folks, so I'm trying to get used to rolling the pelvis in, which helps deliver power. Now I'm thinking about don't straighten this arm. I want this elbow to maintain a little bit of a curve. You don't want to get hyperextended, especially if you miss, right? So keep a little curve in the elbow. Now I'm thinking about delivering. My opponent's head would be here. I'm trying to deliver the blow a few inches inside for follow through and snap. Now I'm thinking I'm moving this hand around too much. Should be doing Pell work with a shield or some other defense. See, I pulled it back a little bit, right? So now I'm thinking what I want to do is have a loose grip on the weapon at first and grab at the bottom just before the point of delivery to add a little extra power, but make sure I've got a pretty strong grip at the end so that I don't lose power from the helmet pushing back, right? So I want to grab strongly with the bottom fingers at the end of the shot. Now I'm thinking, I've got a disconnection. Roll the hips forward again. Now I'm thinking I'm starting with a weapon like this. That doesn't look like it's probably an onside shot. I'm telegraphing already. I should be in a more neutral position, so it could be this way or it could be that way. Now I'm thinking this arm is a little exposed. Maybe I should train, depending on the circumstance, blocking that arm at the same time. I could do it like that, which leaves this shoulder exposed. I could do it like that against a right-handed opponent to shut down their offense. That leaves this leg out a little bit. Now I've realized my butt's sticking back out again, so roll the hips back in. Plant my weight a little bit. Where's my weight? Right now it's mostly on the balls of my feet. Am I comfortable with that? And again, I'm doing Pell practice right now without moving. I should be working movement into it, but I won't just yet. So how many Pell shots should you do? There, my targeting's off. Shouldn't be hitting the defense. I would argue you should be doing at least 100 blows, but 100 blows where you're thinking is more important than 1,000 blows where you're just chop, 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 right? So you want to be building up good muscle memory, ideally making yourself comfortable. Over the course of several thousand shots, a blow that feels uncomfortable, a mechanic that feels uncomfortable should start to feel comfortable. If it's not, start making adjustments, start experimenting until it is comfortable for you. Get a little lower, roll my pelvis. My toe positions right now, this toe's at maybe 11:30 on a clock. This foot's at maybe 1:15, 1:30, right? So should I try slightly different positions? Now I'm thinking, how many different angles can I throw at? Because I happen to be using an axe, I like these for Pell work because especially when you're striking something, it'll tell you if it's flat. If it's even slightly flat, it'll start to roll in your hand. So I want to train for edge work. Although in this case, obviously, I'm not striking anything. But the blow is basically the same with anything. It's just a little, also you have to target very specifically with this portion. But I could throw over the edge of the shield and strike the head. I could throw at an angle like this. You can even modify them to throw behind the shield edge like that, right? So there's lots of different ways to throw this blow. And I can also have the wrist at this angle. I don't tend to hold at a 90-degree angle. That's just not the way my wrist and hand works. You can even be open like this, depending on your arm protection. If you've got what your hand protection looks like, you might not have the flexibility to throw an open shot. So sometimes you should train, people would say, with your arm armor on and things like that. I prefer to train in such a way that if my armor is impeding me, it feels wrong. Because I don't want to start to say like, oh, my arm can only go to there, so that's the only way I ever train to throw blows. So as I continue my Pell work, and this isn't on, if I level with you, this isn't my Pell work for the day. I can't really think of what to say as I do my training, but I'm pretending. So this will be like my warm-up practice. I should be doing probably at least 100 blows without making any major adjustments, as opposed to changing every couple blows like I am right now. That was flat. The other thing is, right now I'm doing something stupid. I'm going without really recovering. I'm just throwing the same blow like I'm chopping wood. No, I should stop, recover, think about my guard, my position, realign on the basics, throw a blow. One of the other things that anyone watching this should probably say is, why do you keep throwing the same recovery? Throw here and just recover straight back? No, I should be throwing different recoveries. So as I start to throw different recoveries in my head, I can feel myself even moving around on my feet a little bit because I want to incorporate movement into my blows. And again, I'm just trying to train my offside headshot right now. But later, at the end, if we were to skip forward, I would start moving movement in. I probably today wouldn't be putting in other blows, but I would probably be doing things like variations on the same blows, remembering to bring my leg with me, something I always forget to do. Maybe offside to the arm, maybe a little offside moulinet, offside above the shield, offside hook, feint thrust after an offside, or after an offside feint. So there are ways that you can sort of treat yourself at the end of practice by getting into movement. I've also chosen to use slippery shoes. I think a lot of us rely on traction a little too much for doing medieval combat. Often it'd be done in mud or grass, in relatively slick-soled shoes, so I'm trying to get away from using like anything that feels like cleats, so like a sports sneaker on asphalt. I'm going to give a kind of technique and traction that you couldn't necessarily rely on, I think, on a battlefield. So anyway, I don't want to go on too long. I'll call it here. Hope that was helpful.